So, welcome. We are doing a wonderful kind of sensory, soothing, grounding webinar today on how we soothe the nervous system and how we also regulate anxiety and panic and dissociation using water and using ice. So it's a bit of a whirlwind webinar. We're probably only going to be together for about half an hour today, and I'm doing this as kind of an immersive experience. So if you've got a big bowl of cold water and a big bowl of warm water handy, I've also got ice as well, which I've just put in a snack block bag. You can use ice, or if you've even just got some frozen peas or something, if that's all you've got handy, that's fine too. And then I've just got a cloth here as well. So that's all we need. But before we get started on the tools and practices using all of these little props today, I'll just explain a little bit about really what we're kind of aiming to achieve in this session. So some of the things you'll experience during these tools are a sense of distraction. So these tools can be really useful just as a distraction technique from a big or overwhelming emotion. Now, I don't always preach to distract from our feelings. In fact, I usually talk about sitting with or accepting our feelings. So this is a little bit of a different technique, but it's actually okay sometimes if you just need a bit of a break. So some of these things are going to be good distractions. And I will say that these the more sharp ones, versions of these tools can be good distractions if you're having an urge to do something unhelpful. So that could be a self-harming urge, or it could be like a self-sabotaging behavior that you tend to engage in. So in that way, distraction can be really useful as a way of kind of urge surfing or riding out the urge. Some of these are sharp sensory grounding tools, and others are soothing sensory grounding tools. So either way, you're going to get kind of an experience of being able to drop in to your body and tune into your senses. And we know that that is a really powerful way of practicing mindfulness, which helps us to process and digest our big emotions. So all of those things are going to be delicious. You're also going to get a different type of lesson with some of these tools, and that is how to sit with uncomfortable feelings or how to sit with discomfort. So when we're talking about anxiety and panic, sometimes we actually need to learn to sit with that feeling, not to resist it or try to push it away, because that actually brings it on stronger. What we resist persists. And so one way of practicing sitting with uncomfortable feelings is to do them and get into discomfort on purpose. So this is a physical discomfort, but it will bring up judgments and emotions. So this is a great way of us doing that. On that, the other thing we'll get from doing this is a way of practicing detachment from judgment. So we all judge, and that's fine. And we often judge our thoughts and we judge our experience. And it's that judgment that actually generates anxiety a lot of the time, or stress, or depression, or all of these emotions that we struggle with. So this is a way of detaching from judgment. We get to bring judgment to the surface and then put some space between us and it. And the last thing, but definitely not the least, it's a really big thing that you're going to get from this webinar, is that we're going to learn how to activate and tone the vagus nerve. This is just one method of doing it. So if cold exposure after this feels like it's not your cup of tea, no stress, there are other ways to tone your vagus nerve. So really briefly, so that you understand going in what that means. The vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It runs from the base of the brain. It intersects a large amount of areas in your body. It runs into your ears, down your throat, through your larynx, pharynx, through your chest, into your lungs, your heart, your digestive system. And it makes up a really big, it's a really big proportionate amount of our parasympathetic nervous system is our vagus nerve, which means it's our rest, digest, soothe, restore part of our system. So quickly, autonomic nervous system is in two branches. So your autonomic nervous system is basically those automatic processes, your breathing, your heart rate, your digestion, and it's also where all your threat responses live. The two branches of the autonomic nervous system are your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is fight and flight. This is our stress response, our movement and activation, getting us going like the accelerator of a car. Our parasympathetic nervous system has two branches of its own. Dorsal vagal, which is a freeze, shutdown, and immobility threat response. And then there's our ventral vagal, which is our social connection, our calm, our resilience, and that helps us bounce back from times of stress. So when we're talking about toning and activating the vagus nerve, we're talking about that ventral vagal system being able to come back to a place of calm. Now, if you want more on that, because that is a very brief explanation of the nervous system, I have two courses on my website. One is for free, and that will go a little bit more into depth and give you ways to tone your vagus nerve over 15 days. The other course is a real deep dive into nervous system work. So, signs of low vagal tone. If you are noticing any of these things, then these tools are going to help today. Anxiety, overwhelm, dysregulation, feeling flat and stuck, digestive issues, kind of pain or chronic pain, aches and pains, long-term fatigue, constipation, bloating, no motivation, insomnia, struggles getting to sleep, headaches, difficulty switching off. All of that, especially a cluster of those symptoms, is a sign of possible low vagal tone, which just means we're not as resilient in our nervous system as we could be, and we can tone it. Right, enough prattling on. Let's get into it. So I'm going to lead you through a bunch of tools. And I think what I might do is I'm going to first quickly share with you this little poster. And this is what's going to be sent out to you afterwards. So we're not going to go through all of these today, but a number of them. So we're looking at how we can use ice, how we can use water, and how we can use those in different ways. So all of these techniques are incredible, and they're all coming out to you after this. Let's start with a hand dunk. I want to start actually with the cold. So if you could get your bowl of cold water. Oh, I've got a really big tub of it here because I had one large bowl left and there was a split in it. So it was leaking everywhere. So grab your bowl of cold water out in front of you. And what we're going to do is, before we even place our hands in, I'm only going to lead you through the kind of extent of it through this one, is we're just going to hover our hands over the bowl of cold water. Okay, so just about to touch, but not quite. And just notice any sensations straight away that you're feeling in your hands. There's almost anticipatory tingles, or maybe even notice any judgments or kind of predictions that you might be making about what that experience might be like. So take a deep breath, and we're going to plunge our hands into the water. So the water that I've got is out of the tap, but it's very cold because here in New Zealand at the moment, it is winter. So our tap water is very, very cold. So if yours isn't, what you could do, if you haven't done it this time, is you can pop ice cubes in it. I haven't done this with mine because it's already cold. And I want you now just to notice, as your hands are in this water, what you are feeling. So just tuning in to the physical sensations in your fingers, your palms, the backs of your hands, your thumbs. And noticing any difference or changes in your breathing or in your muscles, muscle tension in general. And notice if there are any feelings of discomfort. So for me, my experience is I'm now feeling really uncomfortable. In fact, there is pain in my hands because the water is cold. And this is where we can practice sitting with discomfort and also just observing our judgments. So noticing that I'm wanting to take my hands out, noticing that there are feelings of maybe not liking this and wanting to resist it, which is what we so often do with any uncomfortable emotion. So as you're ready, you can take your hands out. And then what we're going to do just before we shift is just notice how your hands are feeling now that they're out of the water. So just observing. Observing how your emotions have changed. Do I have a sense of relief? Isn't that interesting? So noticing that when we move away from a discomfort, that we have a different judgment towards ourselves afterwards. Maybe we have a sense of satisfaction. I did it. I kept my hands in there. Okay, so now I've got a bowl of warm water and I'm going to place my hands in there. So that is technique number 2. This is a hand dunk technique. You can dunk them in cold and you can dunk them in warm. And you'll notice a real difference between the two experiences. This one, obviously, with warm water feels incredibly soothing and relaxing. And that might be just what you need if you're feeling anxious. If you are feeling more panicky or really quite overwhelmed or even dissociated, I could suggest maybe you would start with cold water, with a more sharp and intense sensation that's going to really ground you back into the present moment and into your experience. As you're ready, you can take your hands out of that too. Okay, so there's 2 ways: hand dunk, cold and warm. All right, let's pop them aside and we're going to move to the ice for a little moment here. So I want to talk about how we can use ice now to tone and to activate the vagus nerve, and really just to sort of ground us, to sharply ground us, to distract us if we need it, to practice being mindful, to practice sitting with discomfort. Now, these are scientifically proven methods. So I know that there's been a lot of stuff around like, vagus nerve icing and a lot of stuff like that. That you've probably seen on TikTok or on the internet, but they're there for a good reason, and it's because they do work, and there's science behind this stuff, and it's been around for years. And you'll see methods used across different, psychological or therapeutic practice as well, using ice. So it's definitely not kind of one of those hacks that doesn't really actually do anything. It's really useful. So I'll take you through a few different methods using ice. Okay, so the first we're going to do is I'm just going to get a single piece of ice out. So if you want to follow along, grab a piece of ice. And there's a couple of things we can do here. The first one is we can take the cube of ice and we can just put it on our upper lip and just run it across. Just noticing again, tuning into the body, maybe tuning in and taking some deep breaths as you do this, noticing how that feels. Really good too, as you're doing any of this stuff, be mindful of your breathing. Notice if you're holding your breath, notice if the breath is shifted up into your chest, which is what we do when we're anxious, we breathe high up here. So really being mindful of bringing the breath down into the diaphragm, into the belly. Okay, so there's number 1 with ice onto the top lip. Number 2 with ice in the inside of your wrist. So we're just going to do maybe some circles in there or just back and forward along the wrist. Okay. Noticing how that feels. With any of these, any technique at all, I probably would do for 30 seconds to a minute or so, just tuning in along the way with how do I feel and how's this sitting. And then number 3 with ice is up and down the arm. So I've got long sleeves on today, so I'm just going to go up to here, but you go up, right up, maybe even up to here if you've got short sleeves, up and down the arm with ice. Right, and just noticing again, how does that feel? Breathing. Now, 3rd one with our single piece of ice is popping it in your mouth, of course. Now, why do we do this? Probably a ridiculous idea to try to talk while it's in there. There is a reason we put ice in the mouth. Again, not a bogus hack, but what will happen is it will stop a dry mouth. So if you're somebody who has anxiety or panic, you'll know that probably one of the somatic or physical symptoms that you experience is a dry mouth. And of course, this is really normal. We have this huge redirection of blood flow when we're in a threat response state like anxiety, like fight or flight. And so with this redirection of blood flow, we have a change in our digestive system. Basically our body saying, hey, I don't really need my blood flow to be in my digestive system right now because I'm getting ready to fight, I'm getting ready to run. This digesting my muffin from this morning is not essential. So there's a redirection of blood out into the limbs. And so you may feel flushing of the face and hot hands and hot feet. So that's another reason why, holding a cube of ice, another technique, holding a cube of ice, is really useful because we've got that redirection and heat that happens with anxiety, with panic into our extremities. So of course, with that redirection and move into our extremities, we get butterflies, we get that whoosh feeling in our stomach. We might need to go to the bathroom a bunch of times, and our mouth dries out. So holding the cube of ice in your mouth is going to get the moisture back. So you're not going to have that dry mouth issue. And it's going to increase saliva production, which in turn is going to help shift you into a parasympathetic, so rest, digest, and restore state, out of sympathetic nervous system state. So heaps of things that it's targeting with just these little cubes of ice, which is amazing. Let's go back to our full pack of ice. I probably need to have more in here actually, but you get the idea. I'd probably like to have that a bit fuller. So a couple of other things that we can do here is grab a pack of frozen peas or a full pack of ice. And there's 3 places maybe you can put it. So one is popping it on the back of your neck. You could also put it on the front of your neck as well. So maybe try with both and have a little experiment and see which one feels good for you. Now, this is an amazing way to help calm panic. So this is using ice in these ways is really, really useful for helping us to sort of ice the vagus nerve, bring us back into a state of calm. Okay, so there's one. We've got putting it on the neck. The next one is we pop it on our face, and I would pop it sort of from your hairline to the top of your lip, just like that, and holding it there. So again, if you're following along, just noticing how this feels for you, noticing any sensations that come up, noticing what you feel in your body, noticing any judgment, just being present with it, being present with your breath. So that's a lovely one. Then you can also just place a bag of ice on your chest as well. So we know that our vagus nerve, as it connects with so many places in our body, connects through the chest down into our heart and lungs. And so we're actually able to kind of ice it in a way with this. And this is going to really help to kind of bring our blood pressure down a little bit, bring our heart rate down. So just holding it there, noticing how that feels. Taking a couple of deep breaths. Okay. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just drop this remaining ice into my bowl of cold water. Like that. Right, and I'm just going to talk you through a couple of techniques before I move to that bowl of cold water. So if we use a cloth, this is another brilliant technique. You can dunk your cloth in your cold water or your warm water. So you might like to start with your cold and then move across to your warm for this one. So dunking it in the cold or warm water. And then we've got a few things that we can do with it here. If you've dunked it in warm, what I like to do with the cold cloth, with the warm cloth, is just to place it either over my eyes or even over my whole face, kind of like they would in a beauty spa or a day spa. Not that I go to those, but I imagine it's delightful. And you're just going to place it there and maybe even just lie down. And that's more of a kind of a very relaxing, soothing version with the cloth. If we are looking for techniques around panic, around anxiety, around bringing us back into our body, oh, lovely. Looks like I've bringing us back into our body if we've dissociated, then we want to use the cold water with the cloth. So we will dunk it in cold, and then you're going to either place it again down your face, or you're going to place it on your neck, the back of your neck or the front of your neck. Now, a little trick for you that might be really useful if you're somebody who does experience a lot of high anxiety or a lot of panic is wet cloth, and then get yourself a Ziploc bag. Place the wet cloth into the Ziploc bag, close up the top, and then you're going to pop that into your freezer. And so then any time that you're starting to feel like you're getting a bit dysregulated and you're winding up and you're starting to get anxious or panicky, you can go to your freezer, pull out this bag, and then you've got a very icy cold cloth that you can grab out and you can pop on your neck, down your face, on the back of your neck. So that's going to be a really kind of brilliant have it ready for you whenever you need it, kind of tool or trick with your cloth. Now I'm still letting my ice bath cool down just a smidge more. So to share with you another couple of techniques. One is to do a foot bath. So maybe this is a nicer one to have with warm water. So fill up a big bucket with warm water, and then you can pop in Epsom salts, or you can pop in just some like essential oil, a few droplets of maybe lavender or something like that, and give yourself a lovely foot bath or a foot dunk. So that's a really nice thing to do. With essential oil, if you're on this water buzz, I like to also put a couple of droplets of essential oil onto a cloth and then just pop the cloth down in the base of my shower, and the heat and the steam kind of gives you that lovely sensory aromatic experience, which is nice and calming. Another one, so we're all on the shower techniques now, is a cold blast in the shower. Now, this is a very useful way to activate and tone your vagus nerve. So it is a brave technique to do, but you need to turn your shower to cold for the last 30 seconds or so of your shower. If you're feeling super brave, you could have a cold shower for the entire time. And so what it does with a cold blast in the shower is it redirects that blood flow. It kind of calms and lowers the heart rate, and it also activates something called a mammalian dive reflex. Now, let me talk about what that is now, actually, the mammalian dive reflex, and then we're going to really experience it with a face dunk. Hopefully someone's going to follow along and do that with me, so I'm not alone dunking my face here. So the mammalian dive reflex is sort of this evolutionary hangover. It's a biological part of our system that happens very automatically when our face comes into contact with or is submerged in cold water. So it's really a survival reflex and technique that our body does quite automatically. So what happens when you submerge the face into cold water, or just when you splash the face with cold water, is your vagus nerve communicates a signal to your body and to your brain that your face has been submerged. And it does this through some of the nasal vessels. So it lets your body and your brain know, hey, my face is submerged, or it's come into contact with water, I'm in the water. So we activate the dive reflex. And really what that's about is conserving oxygen so that we can survive. And so what your body will do in order to do that is it will reduce your heart rate by 10 to 25-ish%, which for those of us with panic and with anxiety is a godsend. You'll know, especially with panic, how much your heart rate increases. So if you can feel a panic coming on, I highly recommend you take yourself off to a bathroom nearby and fill up a sink with some cold water if you can, or just splash your face with cold water. We'll do it too. But this is a practice that I suggest you implement if you're somebody who has is experiencing panic and is experiencing a lot of anxiety. So this is my cold water tub now that I've got here. I've got quite a big tub of it. And I've put ice cubes in it just to really cool it down. And we are going to dunk our face in, aiming to submerge the face till sort of at least 3/4 of the way up the cheek to really send our body that signal we're underwater. We need to activate the dive reflex. I'm just going to pop my hair up. I hope someone is doing this with me. I'd be very excited if you are. Okay. Right, so what you're going to do is take a deep belly breath in, a really diaphragmatic low breath in, and just go for as long as you can. I probably won't go as long as I can here, otherwise we're all just going to be watching me with my head in a bucket on a course. But I'm going to do probably, 15 seconds. Aim for 30 if you can hold your breath that long, or even if you can hold your breath for a minute, go for it. See what feels good and what feels right, because you don't want to make yourself feel more panicky with the fact that you are not getting a breath. So when you're ready, just come back out. So just listen to what your body needs. All right, I hope someone's doing this with me. Deep breath in, submerge. Right, I wanted to go longer actually, but I'm going to leave it there so that we're not just lovely. We're not just watching me in a bucket. Okay. Oh, mascara was a silly idea, wasn't it? So, oh my goodness, it is honestly the nicest feeling. There's something about going into that kind of thing where you get this prejudgment about the idea of doing some cold water exposure that you feel like, oh no, I don't want to do it. You know, I don't like the cold. I promise you, it's so refreshing. And it will give you this beautiful reduction in heart rate and kind of just a lovely reset for your nervous system and get that vagus nerve on board and getting us back to ventral vagal. If that speaks to you, or any of the techniques from today speak to you, I suggest that you incorporate them into a daily practice even and see what happens, especially the ones that are really kind of that direct activation. So especially something like a cold blast, you know, the icing or the cold water face dunk would be a really great one to do. Okie dokie. So I'm just, before we kind of sign off the webinar here, I'm going to just do one more little screen share so that you can see that there are so many different ways that we're able to activate this vagus nerve. So I've got here all the different methods you can use with a shower, with a bath, which we haven't spoken about today, with face dunking, with water. There's all of our ice cube methods. There's our cloth methods, and then there's our ice pack methods. So lots and lots there that you can use as little takeaways to help you to regulate during times of panic, during times of anxiety, bringing you back from dissociation. So I hope this has been really, really helpful. It's been wonderful to be able to share these with you. If you want to deep dive a little bit more around how we do vagal toning, just around the nervous system in general, I highly recommend you go and grab my Soothe and Regulate the Nervous System course. You could just test the waters by jumping on board the free 15-day Reset Your Nervous System challenge. So you'll find that in my courses page too. If you need more support with anxiety and with panic, I have 2 courses on it, an anxiety course and a panic to peace course, which I highly recommend you go and check out. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate all of you, and lots of love and warm fuzzies.